Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's Inside Marketing Coffee Break. I'm your host from Inside.com, Stephanie Zielinski. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to be talking today about from idea to seven-figure startup. And this is a great topic with our speaker, Jim, because he has not only helped a lot of startups grow to this level, but he's a two-time founder himself. So he's got a lot of know-how to share with you all today. It's going to be a very valuable session. We want this to be as helpful as possible to you. So please bring us your questions. Head to the comment section on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, inside.com, wherever you're watching this, and hop into the chat and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and give us your questions for Jim. And we'll get to those at the end of his presentation. Before I tell you more about our speaker today, I'll quickly tell you about Inside.com. We are a social news site with over 40 topics like startups, VC, HR, of course, marketing, no-code wellness. I mean, we are always adding new topics, and we have over 30 newsletters that are going to be relevant to you if you're in the startup world. We have recently added a glossary. We're going to be coming out with a guides articles section soon, and we have a new job board. And then finally, you're at one of our live events. We have events like this all the time, and you can see more about those at inside.com/events. All right, let me tell you a little more about Jim. He is the CEO of GrowthHit, a growth marketing consultancy that's generated over $250 million in sales for their clients. He's the co-founder of One Day Design and Handsome Chaos. He hosts a podcast called If I Was Starting Today and is the author of the Amazon bestseller, The Growth Marketer's Playbook. And it actually pushed Seth Godin off the #1 spot for 72 hours. A great accomplishment there. Jim, welcome. Thank you for being here today to share all of your knowledge.
Awesome, Stephanie. Fired up to be here. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, you have so much to share with us, and you can just get started whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Yeah, way too many slides here, but hopefully we can add value to people here today. So let me share my screen real quick. And here we go. Awesome. Okay, cool. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. So we'll dive into it. But first, thank you guys for being here. I know everyone's like super busy. You have a lot going on. So I do not take that lightly. So I've got a lot of stuff I want to hit you guys with. So that way, when you leave this, hopefully you're inspired to have some ideas, whether you have a startup, you have a business you're looking to grow. Hopefully this is helpful, or you're thinking of something and maybe this can be fuel to the fire to do that thing. And then there's probably a place where I can drop in like my email and stuff, but people can hit me up. I'm just Jim@growthhit.com. So before I get into it, I can give a little more perspective on myself and my background before we talk about startup growth. So, as Stephanie mentioned, I have a growth marketing agency, GrowthHit. We love working with founders that have big goals. We've had four companies get acquired in the past 12 months. We've had 3 raise over $50 million. We've seen them go on Shark Tank. So it's super fun for us. And then we'll link to like the podcast and the book. We give you guys some freebies. Another thing, we work with a lot of startup accelerators, and that's where a lot of this knowledge is coming from today, from Techstars to YC, getting to get those reps in to see what works and what doesn't. We also did like the course for growth marketing on LinkedIn and some other stuff. And then one last thing about myself, we have the agency, but we're like, hey, if we're such a good growth team, why can't we grow our own stuff? So we did a startup studio, and the goal is to get 3 different companies to 7 figures by the end of the year. One of them is One Day Design, a productized service. That one just hit 130K. Another one is a direct-to-consumer brand, Handsome Chaos, that we can talk about a little bit as well, that we're trying to get to 7 figures by the end of the month. But yeah, I tweet way too much about it, talk about what we do that works and what fails. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. But let's talk about you, where you're potentially at in your growth journey. You're like, all right, I've got a company, I'm trying to grow it, I've got an idea. And I kind of know potentially where you're at. A lot of you all have seen this. This is the startup growth journey. And let's just kind of like tell this story real quick of how it goes. You have the idea, it's very exciting. You launch it, everybody cares, your mom cares. And then after launch, it's crickets. And then we're about to get really depressed, right? You enter the trough of sorrow. people forget about you, nobody cares, but then you start to maybe get a little bit of traction from people that actually need the thing that you offer. Maybe you're solving a problem. This is when we're approaching traction and product market fit. And then when you really have something special, that's when it's game on. That's when you can start to grow. Where I see the two biggest plateaus, the two biggest issues are pre-product market fit. And that might be where you're at today. You're like, gosh, I can't really nail this. People aren't into it. Or maybe you have something that's working, but you hit that next plateau. You're like, I don't know how to grow this thing. I don't know how to find a repeatable, scalable way to grow. Because once you unlock that, honestly, that one growth channel, that's all you need to go to that A round of funding to really get to even like 2 to 5 million in sales, depending on your business model. So where do we go wrong? What are some of the mistakes you might be making? First is you might be focusing on growth too soon. You're sending traffic to a platform, a website that doesn't convert. So many times we see people overspend on growth when we're like, don't hire us, don't spend money on ads. You need to take a step back. The second is maybe you can grow, but you're having to pay for it and it's not profitable. It's ROI, it's not ROI positive. And unless you can land that plane on how you flip to profitability, that can be really dangerous, right? A lot of companies have had issues there. Or finally, you might be getting some wins from one-off campaigns, but it's not sustainable. It's like, okay, that worked, but the well's empty, the well's dry. I don't know what to do next. So what should you do? So here's how we think about growth, right? And we've done this now with over 150 companies, and I'm just going to give you the playbook so you can do it yourself. And for us, it's really kind of two phases of growth, the way we think about it. First is, what is your foundation for growth? And can you validate that it works? If it does, then it's game on. Then you can scale. Again, the mistake people make is they start here. And so to break this down into 4 phases, first it's, what's your unique value prop? What's your positioning? Because if you don't know, like, where you stand out, where you're a market of one and have a mini monopoly, it's going to be really hard to grow. And so that's understanding the competitive landscape, your unique value prop. And what we're going to talk about is that offer. The second thing you need to get dialed in is, what are your unit economics? What game are you playing as far as how much does it cost to acquire to somebody and how much you're going to make over that lifetime? And then factor in your seasonality, your churn, retention, peaks and troughs. We're going to talk more about this in a second. The third thing, I promise I'm also almost done with the framework stuff. We'll get into some case studies. The third is, and notice how I put this third and not fourth, you need to create a remarkable user experience. What does that mean? Make a conversion machine. You want a website that when people go to it, a skeptical person on mobile, it's built to convert from a UI UX standpoint or a copywriting and positioning standpoint. The fourth thing, and finally, do you know your growth engine, your growth levers of how you can drive traffic to keep people coming again and again? And again, these 4 things, if you get these dialed in, you become a rock star as a founder or as a marketer to where you can go to that next level of scale and growth. So we're going to get into how to like run your first 12 months to get to 7 figures. I'm going to give you a lot of case studies and examples. But before I do that, here's the big question. Where do you start? And this is not sexy or exciting stuff. And it's something that you already know, but it's so important. And I'm going to give you a different way to think about it. And it's personas. So the first thing is you need to come to terms with the fact that no one cares about your product, right? They care about themselves. And so how do we speak to them, right? We need to speak to them in a way where it's beneficial and advantageous for them to consider your product or service because you're going to help them. So you're like, okay, I'm down with that. But let's break down these personas into 3 simple categories, and we'll do it from the lens of how you should grow to get your first 100 customers, first 500, and first 1,000 customers. And it's 3 simple personas, and it's from Derek Halpern. And the first persona is the informed person. And who is that? They're the one that they desperately need what you offer, and they're already looking for people to use it. And they're down to switch. So they're informed, they're using a competitor, it's not solving what they want. So how we speak to them is with features. and we get them to switch from one product to yours. These are your early adopters. The second persona, this is the person that has a problem. They aren't informed, but they know they have a problem and they need to solve it. They're afflicted. So how do we talk to them in a problem solution format? And then the third person, this person is oblivious. They aren't informed. They don't know they have a problem, even though they do. So how do we speak to them? It's not with features. It's not problem solution. We have to get creative with getting their attention. And so you have the informed buyer, the afflicted buyer, and the oblivious buyer. Let's give some examples of how we talk to them differently. And this is so important because this informed buyer, these are your early adopters. The afflicted are the fast followers, and the oblivious person is the mainstream. To get to your first, probably 7 figures, you definitely need the informed and maybe the afflicted. This is really how you scale those, going to that oblivious person. So let's break it down. So one example is I have this company called One Day Design. We can design a web page for you in 1 day, and it's designed to convert because we're a CRO team. So someone that is informed, how do we speak to them? Again, we need them to switch. So the language we use is switch from overpriced design agencies and get an on-demand design team, right? So we already know what they're using, and talking about that pain point, pour salt in the wound of price and speed, and then use this service. All right, let's go to the second persona. This is the afflicted buyer. They have a problem. They aren't informed, but they have a problem and they need help solving it. So what's their problem? It's like, hey, is your website leaking money? Get a website designed that's designed to get results and conversions. Monetize the 98% of traffic that's leaving your website. So notice how it's problem solution format. In this copy with these personas, why is this important? This is the foundation of your growth strategy, whether it's your ad copy, your website, your emails, your press releases. You want it to be this game of telephone where they're using the same language. All right, let's get to the third persona. And this is the hardest one to nail because it's the oblivious buyer. They aren't informed. They don't know about the problem that they have. So we just have to get their attention. Almost think of it as like a BuzzFeed style of headline, but maybe not as clickbaity. So for the same service of One Day Design, you could say, learn how I turned my idea into a real website overnight, or want to know my secret weapon as a head of growth. So notice how these are trying to be attention grabbing, right? Playing 1 to the aspiration, or 2, playing to like teasing a question that a persona would have. And the whole goal of this is whenever you are going to launch a company, launch an idea, we can fall in love with the technology. We can fall in love with our own design, but we always need to know it means nothing unless you have a market that is chomping at the bit to be satisfied by this. So really get in tune with these 3 different personas and how you can speak to them. Okay, what I want to do next is before we get to the growth strategy on how to grow and scale, we've done the first thing. Okay, got it, Jim. I understand the personas and how to speak to them, but that is not enough. People are busy. They have so many notifications coming at them every day. They do not care about your product or service that you offer just yet. We have to give them a reason to activate today. And so what does that mean? You need to come up with an irresistible offer. We're very inspired by the idea of offer-led growth, where don't start with the product, don't start with the problem you're solving. Start with an offer that's so compelling that even when they're busy, they're on the subway looking at their phone, they're like, I'll sign up for this. So before we get to examples of that, I want to give you a formula. And this is from $100 Million Offer. There's a lot of formulas out there. This is one of our favorites. But when you're trying to create that offer, there's 4 key components you need to factor in. First, does the offer have anything around the dream outcome of how do you transform them after they use this product or service? The second thing is, what is the likelihood of achieving this, right? It's like guaranteed to get a 6-pack or whatever that is, or guaranteed to save X amount. We have a 70% success rate. The third thing, and this one might be the most important, it's time delay gratification. People will pay more for speed. So how can you get them to your magic moment as quickly as possible? An example of that is 7-minute abs. Domino's delivers pizza to you in 30 minutes. That's why we named One Day Design, because we think this is one of the most compelling components. And then the final thing, it's effort or sacrifice. It's, what do I have to put in to get that dream outcome that I want? You see this a lot of times with companies where it's like, in 3 easy steps, or onboarding only takes 60 seconds, or a 7-week program that'll help you hit $10 million. Really understand the effort or sacrifice. The only other thing that you could layer on top of this would be a potential guarantee to do a little bit of risk reversal. So what I want to do real quick is a little bit of a speed round of some of my favorite offers. And the reason for this is, before we get to your growth strategy, you need to know your persona, and you need to know that irresistible offer that if you get it in front of them, it's a no-brainer. Then all of your other marketing activities will look genius. So I'm going to start with potentially my favorite. This one is a masterclass in offers, and it is Main Street. And essentially, if you're a startup and you've raised money, there's a lot of tax credits you can get, where you could save 50 or you could get 50 or 100K in a check sent to you from the government. And so look at this. It says get $50,000 back from the IRS in 20 minutes. So dream outcome, time delay gratification. We do all the paperwork, you get the cash. If we can't help you claim any credits, you pay $0. So look at the effort or sacrifice. It's very, very minimal. And then here they're showcasing a founder and how much money they made, and it's just scrolling through it. There's no reason why you wouldn't do this if you are that right persona. And then their call to action, very strong: book a free onboarding. This one is Ladder in the insurance category. Another strong one where it talks about getting that coverage of 100K to 3 million. One big pain point with life insurance is medical exams. So no medical exam. So, effort or sacrifice is minimal. It just takes 5 minutes from start to finish. We'll go to another one. This is Pop. It is in the kind of pet insurance space. With them, they're talking about, hey, it's just $24 a month. You can get covered up to $3,000 because unexpected pet expenses can get out of hand. So another really compelling one. We'll go to 2 more. We'll do it in the direct-to-consumer space. This one's been around for a while, but really strong. With Warby Parker, they had the home try-on program where try-on glasses is really hard at home. So they're like, hey, pick out 5. We'll send them to you. It's on us. The label's in there, so you send it back, no charge. And they really push 5 days and 5 pairs. Like, we'll get it to you in 5 days. You have 5 days with it, and then send it back. So really impressive here. And then Curology, this one is also a masterclass in the direct-to-consumer space with their offer. So with Curology, they have a personalized skincare product for you. And what they do is they give you the first one for free. You get your own custom formula for free, and you connect with a dermatologist. You just go through their onboarding with the quiz. You enter some information. You do have to upload photos of your skin, but it's really a no-brainer offer to see how it works. And then after 2 months, it flips to a $60 subscription. So hopefully that gets your kind of wheels going on different offers you could use. So the question to ask yourself as you're thinking of your own company or your own startup, where do you have an unfair advantage, or where can you really do something innovative and special? Is it the dream outcome, likelihood of achieving it, time delay gratification, or effort or sacrifice? So hopefully that's helpful to think through the personas and the offers. Okay, now let's get to growth. You're like, all right, got it, Jim. Know my persona. I'm working on my offer. Now what? How do we grow this thing? So the first question to ask yourself is, what are my options for growth? And you can go into 2 categories. One is you're like, I want to do everything. You should actually go to the opposite. You can test a lot of things to hone in on the one thing. Because if you just want to get to the, first 50, 100 customers, clients, it's really one channel and doing it phenomenally well. Honestly, most companies that even get to like the B round of funding that we see, it's on the back of 2. So back to what are your options? This is from the book Hacking Growth by Sean Ellis. He says these are essentially your 27 options of growth, and that you could put them into 3 categories. One is growing through virality or word of mouth, right? We can grow through a referral program, through giveaways. We can go through community as marketing. The second is we can grow organically. You can grow through search engine optimization, through phenomenal content marketing. You could grow through building up a massive email list, or you can pay for growth, whether that's through Facebook, Instagram, through Google, through podcast advertisements. The only other one I would actually maybe break out to a fourth option would taking partnership channels or a partner channel. For example, if you're launching a Shopify app and launching in the Shopify marketplace or kind of ecosystem would be another one that I've seen work really well. So as you look at this, think to yourself, where do you have traction right now? Or where do you think you have a huge upside to focus out of these options? So the second thing is really start to hone in on what is your funnel based on your business model. Meaning, are you business to business? Are you business to consumer? Also, what is your kind of touch points with your customers? Are you an acquisition-based business where you're just doing one transaction with them in a year or in a lifetime? Or are you a retention-based business where it's all about subscription? Because that absolutely informs how you think about your go-to-market strategy and your options. So what I'm putting here is just like some examples of if you're B2B or B2C, ways to think about your funnel. Okay, so you've got your options, you're starting to consider things based on your industry, B2B versus B2C. The next thing is I really want you to be aware of seasonality, timing. Where do you have momentum over the next 12 months where you can lean into demand? And where do you not have momentum where you need to engineer demand? So there's this principle of the 4 peaks from Common Thread, which I think is really interesting, where based on your industry or category, you're naturally going to have peaks and troughs. So this could be a consumer business where you're going to have a huge peak in Q4, and then maybe based on your seasonality, it could be in Q2. So with these peaks, what are you doing to maximize demand and to lean into it? But then we have these troughs. What do you do in these times? This is when you need to make noise. The most impressive founders, in my opinion, are the ones that every month are engineering how they make noise and create content, do launches or other things. So you're launching products in these trough times. You're leaning into a movement. You're picking a fight. You're doing a big press launch to create 2 other peaks. So rather than having 2 natural peaks, you're adding 2 more to get to 4 peaks over the year. So whenever I'm working with companies, after they've dialed in their persona and their offer, this is where we focus. So I apologize. This is probably way too small to see with this font, but let me break down this kind of 12-month growth plan that you should be thinking through. So here's month 1 to month 12. You're like, all right, the first 12 months, here we go. What am I doing? I want you to think of your growth tactics or channels in 2 simple categories right now. One, you're always on growth channels that you should always be doing. And then the second are your marketing moments or your growth events. So let's talk about the always on growth channels. What are some options for that? You could always be doing social ads on Meta, Facebook, Instagram. You could always be doing search ads, always do SEO and content marketing. You're always doing, email newsletter campaigns and blasts, right? So you have these things you're always doing. Could be cold email, whatever. And so you need to ask yourself, which ones can you be best in class in? Whether it's, ideally one you're doing very well, but there's 2 or 3 that are up and coming. The next question is, what are the growth events you have that will amplify your always on growth channels? And again, these are the founders that blow me away, the ones that look at a month, look at a quarter, and they're thinking through based on their seasonality, the peaks and troughs, where they're going to make noise. So what are your options for making noise? It could be a product launch. It could be some huge partnership. It could be working with the influencer. It could be giveaways. It could be doing a big press release. It could be a podcast tour. It could also be, hey, I'm going to pick a fight. Or, hey, I know that this is going to be trending because of the Super Bowl, or this is going to be trending because of something around work from home. And then ask yourself, how can you bake that into the year? It's like, okay, we're going to do 3 launches a year. Got it. We're going to do 2 to 4 big collaborations. Okay, there. Space it out to really start to make noise so it starts to snowball. So hopefully this is helpful when you're thinking about this. The other thing that I want to put out there is you don't have to be perfect with this. Really embrace doing things that maybe flop, that maybe aren't huge home runs, and that's okay. And just be like, all right, we learned from it, move on to the next thing. And one just kind of tip to think through is, how should you prioritize these experiments? As you're like, okay, Jim, I got my personas, my offers. I'm going to think through all the different things that we can do, but how do we prioritize? First is what can have the biggest impact as far as an experiment you could do that would give you a non-linear jump in growth, right? That could be big. Second is ease of implementation. We're all overworked. We're wearing lots of hats. What can we do that's like a low level of effort to get a win? And especially if you're just getting started on running a lot of experiments, I like to start with easy rather than hard just to get our confidence up. Third, what can you do for free that if it works, validates putting your precious dollars behind it? Fourth, this might be the most important, but what experiment could you run that will give you the fastest feedback loop? Could be a simple A/B test on a subject line for an email, right? Fifth, what segments are you targeting? I'll be honest, this might be one of the most impactful things. Whether it's existing customers, whether it's revenue expansion opportunities, or certain personas that are more coveted than others. Okay, now I want to shift to get into some examples and case studies, just to start to kind of fire hose you with ideas and inspiration on how to fill out this calendar right here on what you're doing over the next 12 months. And I'm not going to just kind of be like, okay, here's some best practices on running social ads, on TikTok ads, on Google ads. There's lots of other places where you can get that. What I want to do instead is think of creative ways to innovate on top of those. And it's really about how we activate and some creative ideas there. And I think there's this spectrum of activation with our growth marketing events and tactics that we do. And one thing I want you to ask yourself is how aggressive do you want to be with customer acquisition? And when I say aggressive, it's like how much money do you want to spend and how much time? So this is kind of an incentive scale where this is the least aggressive to the most aggressive. Because if you like hired me to work with you and you're like, Jim, you have to guarantee I get this many customers, I'd be like, all right, I can do it, but it's going to cost. And here's what we have to do. So on the lighter end, it's like to activate people, we're giving away free content, free courses, things like that. We're giving them early access to products. We can start cutting into margins a little bit more, right? Where we're doing discounts, we're doing BOGOs, buy one, get one free. We're doing bundles. Another thing is it's a little annoying, but they still work. Doing giveaways, especially with a value of over $250. Another one, we'll get into examples here, but how can you use your product as your marketing, right? Through referral mechanisms. And then finally, it's very obvious, but you could pay people to be your customers, whether it's PayPal or Guilt. That's how they got on the map and got to the success that they had. So we'll go rapid fire through some of these examples. Obviously, if you have something really innovative, giving free content away can be huge, whether it's content upgrades, ebooks, or courses. One that I want to call out actually is Buffer. When Buffer was launching, it's a social media scheduling tool. They did something really smart. They made a social media training class. You're like, hey, you're getting started in your career. You want to run social media. We made a 25-day email course where we drip content to you every week to make you black belt in social media marketing. And here's why this is genius. They could have done a YouTube channel. They could have done some sort of video course. Instead, what they do is train you to open the inbox because they're dripping you content every day that adds value. So every time you're looking at their email, it's going to probably be something that helps you. And it's building up their email list. And this really helped them in the early days to become a thought leader and get buy-in. Another one, this might be one of my favorites, is this idea of engineering as marketing by giving away a free tool. Because one thing to think about is if you really want to sell your product, your best marketing is your product. Whether you're a SaaS company just giving the product away from free, or you're a direct-to-consumer company, give them the product. But sometimes, like that magic moment, you have to find other ways to create it. So this one is from Wealthfront. They had a product called a high yield cash savings account. And what is that? You have this money sitting in like your Chase savings account. It makes 0.1%. They're like, hey, we can help you make 3% on that cash that's sitting there. So you all just fell asleep as I tried to explain a high yield cash savings account to you. I fell asleep. It was so boring. So like, okay, it's boring. How do we put it out there? Instead of telling people about it, let's show them. So look what they did. They made this tool where they're like, hey, how much money do you have in your savings account? You have 50K? Fantastic. Right now you're making $50 a year because it's 0.1% return. With the high yield cash savings account, you're going to make $1,000 with that money that's sitting there. Now you have their attention, all because they made this simple tool that you could toggle and play with. You see this a lot of time with mortgage calculators, solar panel companies. How can you innovate on that, where that can be your lead gen tool? HubSpot did that in the early days as well with their website grader tool. And then the final example of that is Hit Labs. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Hit List. It is a travel site where you're like, hey, I want to go somewhere in the world, whether it's a beach vacation. And they're like, okay, you want to go on a beach vacation? You can go to Mexico for $200, or you can go to Bali for $2,000. So it's a really fun way to travel. But here's the problem. You have to compete with Google, Kayak, TripAdvisor on SEO and paid. They're very good at that. So they made a Chrome extension where you open a new tab in Chrome, it shows you somewhere in the world you can go. And it's like, hey, you're close to LaGuardia. You can go to Thailand for $860. Flight leaves in 4 hours. This was their number one channel for acquisition, was a Chrome extension that their head of product thought of. Other kind of tactics you could be thinking through, Superhuman really put on a masterclass with early access and scarcity with their kind of Gmail or email plugin to have the fastest inbox ever. And they did a bottoms up approach by doing it within the VC, startup, and agency community. Another one, as we get into some referrals, is this is Robinhood, that we're all probably familiar with for other reasons, but their waitlist acquisition strategy was super impressive in the early days. And the reason for that was because of their incentive. So with Robinhood, they were like, hey, you're paying $7 a trade right now on Ameritrade or Scottrade. It's $0 to trade for us. Sign up to get on the wait list to get early access to free trading. And then what happens is you get on the wait list, like, all right, there's 300,000 people ahead of you. You're like, okay, that's a bummer. But if you share this, invite other people, you can move up in the wait list and get early access. Some other ones that you have is around quizzes, activations. This is Third Love. They're really going after Victoria's Secret, kind of in the women's undergarment space. And how are they competing? They're competing with fit. So what are they doing? They're like, hey, take our quiz to get a product that's custom fit for you and better than what else is out there. So all of their marketing strategy is around getting you into their fitting room to take the quiz to figure out what's the right product for you. Another way to think about activation is we can lose money or break even on that first purchase if you have a strong lifetime value. Now, what I'm about to show you is like a cautionary tale of that, because Wink went very aggressive in this with the wine subscription. Free shipping on wine. Shipping wine is not free. It's very expensive. And they're basically giving you 4 bottles for $30. So they're breaking even, if not losing money, because they were really banking on the lifetime value of the customer with subscription wine. So really good at customer acquisition. However, they couldn't land the plane on the unit economics of cost to LTV and keeping churn down. Another thing is, I mentioned giveaways. They're a little annoying, but there's ways to innovate on top of it, and they still work. This was one wine brand we worked with where we got over 30,000 signups, I think, in like 14 days. And what we did was create a valued giveaway where the perceived value was very high. I think this one was over $500, if not $1,000, whereas about winning a trip to their castle where they make wine for a free experience. So yes, it's going to cost the company, probably say $500, $700, but the cost per email acquisition on this was below $1. So it definitely paid off and was ROI positive over the long run. Even when we launched our book, The Growth Marketer's Playbook, the giveaway that we ran to help us get to #1 on Amazon was around, hey, sign up to get the book. Oh, by the way, we're doing a giveaway where you could win basically $4,000 worth of incentives and prizes and work. And you could re-enter the giveaway by sharing this on social channels, emailing a friend. And this was a big reason that helped with our launch. This is another neobank we worked with where we would do monthly giveaways of $250. Another thing, in the spirit of giving the product away as your acquisition channel, I love these because when you think about it, your customer acquisition cost is just a number. Whether you give that dollar number to Google or Facebook or to a partner, or you give it to yourself because you're buying the product, you can get innovative with it. With Girlfriend Collective, whenever they were launching and selling leggings, it was a $90 product as athleisure was blowing up and people were hesitant to spend that much money. Like, okay, that's a problem, but the product's so good. Like, the magic moment is when people touch it and use it and feel it. If we can just get it in their hands, they'll fall in love with it. So look how aggressive they were. Right under shop, they had earn free leggings. You click this pops up and like, all right, share this on social, come back, create an account, we'll give you free leggings. Probably cost them $25 to do this all in. But what they found was if people are sharing this on their channels, their identity is aligned with it, one, and two, the repeat purchase rate was actually higher for this channel than social channels. This worked so well, it got picked up by Vogue, Refiner29, and really put them on the map. Harry's innovated with this as well, with what they did with get on their wait list and then share it with 5 people, you get shaving cream, 10 people, handle with blades, 25 people, you get the Winston shave set. And then Dropbox, we've all seen this one, right? Giving away free cloud storage if you share this out. So just other ways to think through how you can do acquisition. Another thing that I want you to think through is, this kind of comes back to the offer. What is the right activation point? I want to show, this is one client we were working with where they, it's called Labster. They do virtual simulations for universities that teach science. So you're a science professor, you want people to do lab work online, or high school teacher. And what we really experimented with is, what is the right activation point? Do you go for the jugular and give them a pricing page? Do you get them on a sales call? Do you do a demo? Do you do a webinar, a pre-recorded webinar? Or do you give the product away for free? And the big unlock was it varied by persona. So really be open-minded to be extreme with how you activate and test different things. And it can vary by persona, whether it's going for the call, going for the pricing page, or giving the product away for free. One thing that I think we don't talk about enough is like the brilliance of Zoom and their freemium model, and the fact that you could get it for free, but it was very strategic in that your free account was limited to 40 minutes, right? So they get you to use it, so it becomes almost habitual. It's your go-to, using that over competitors like Skype or whatever else. But if you become a real user, then you have to become paid. They really pushed the annual subscription, which was also genius. And like one thing I should have called out at the top, their onboarding was seamless. It's like 3 steps to get your custom Zoom link. They're removing every point of friction to get to that magic moment. And then this is another one. I'll kind of finish with 2 more. This is ConvertKit. ConvertKit is an email automation platform competing with MailChimp specifically for creators. And here's what they found. They were really good at getting people's interest by blasting their content out there. But when it came to switching or converting, they had a lot of issues. They were stuck at like 1K to 2K MRR for like 2 years. And that's when they find we're like, you know what? We have to lean into this pain, and that's going to be our activation strategy. And so look at this. They would basically do the migration from whatever email tool you are using to theirs for free. So they were so aggressive as they made custom landing pages about, hey, graduate from MailChimp to ConvertKit. And then look at their footer. They put all their competitors' names, and they would show you how to do the migration and then give you a service where they would do it for free. They are now doing $30 million a year in sales, and really credit this activation strategy with getting to the next level. Another thing to think about is, take some of these old strategies that could be done the same, like the spirit of it is the same, but the application is a little different. So one quick example of this is Mint. They got acquired by Intuit for $170 million. They credit their success with growing through content marketing, specifically their blog and doing infographics. So much so they abandoned all of their ad spend, where this was their number one driver of customer acquisition, was their blog as thought leader for personal finance, and then they would push you to their app. So you can't just go out and do this exact same thing. What's the 2023 version of this? This is actually something we're testing. We're like, okay, it's hard to compete, especially in our space, with blogs, but what's an emerging channel where we could do something innovative? So obviously TikTok is very huge and strong. So we made a separate account. It's not our agency account, called Damn Good Marketing, where it's just about showing some epic marketing examples within 30 to 60 second video clips, and then doing a soft sell of like, hey, like go check out GrowthHit if you want to learn more. The verdict is still out if this is the right move. But what's exciting is we're seeing some traction. We've gotten multiple videos over 1 million views. It's helping us build up the email list. We'll see if we can land the plane to turn this into a lead generation machine or mechanism. Another thing to think through is like, what are these other channels or tactics you could do that would be innovative in 2023, whether it's community as marketing, whether it's latching onto a community or starting your own. From what Lululemon has done to what communities like Insight is doing, or even Trends, is something to really think through on what is right for you and right now. So I actually want to take a quick pause, because we could open it up to questions right now. I do have some other kind of case studies and examples we could get into, but I want to just kind of touch base to see if there's any questions specifically on, some of the tactics we went through, or even this process of how to think through your first 12 months. And after you create your persona in your offer, what your always on growth channel should be, one, or two, what are those marketing moments or events you could do for activation?
Yeah, so many categories that everyone watching right now can dive into for their questions. We welcome your questions right now. We've got less than 15 minutes with Jim. So everyone watching, please, introduce yourself, tell us about your company, and give us your questions for Jim. Jim, you were talking about like that stage of you've got the persona down, you've got your offer down, and you're building this calendar for your growth plan. And you had mentioned earlier, I hope I heard correctly, like you've seen companies that are going into Series B funding rounds and they only have a few customers. Are these like agency or consulting companies where every like enterprise customer is a huge fish to land? Or are these companies that need a lot more than a few customers?
Gotcha. Sorry. Yeah. And I think what I meant was actually growth channels, but it leads to a good point of like, think of like, what is that milestone of this? Is it 10 customers, or is it 1,000 or 10,000 customers that gets you to that next milestone? And also don't think that like you have to figure out that scalable tactic right away. There's still so many big companies and like startups that I talk to that still do a lot of scrappy bottoms up things. Even like ConvertKit, I still see Nathan Barry in people's DMs literally asking people to manually switch. That's literally how he got me. And so
God.
I would embrace that
Awesome.
and almost think of it as these different points. Like, okay, how do we get our first customer? How do we get our first 10, first 20, first 50? Like, I'll even talk about our agent. I'm happy to go through B2B, B2C, or even agency. But with our agency, I would do free work. I would then look for people hiring a growth hacker, take an interview, and be like, okay, you can hire me, but only part-time because I'm an agency. I would then do like cold email. I would do partnerships. I would do ads that scale a little bit more. And then it's like creating content. Because I think we all want to find that silver bullet that doesn't really exist in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of stair stepping with, yes, trying to figure out those scalable ones that are always on, but always be doing those growth events where it could be like a small win, like hitting a base hit, or it could be a home run.
Okay. Everything you've talked about is so comprehensive, and I'm glad that Esteban Rico on YouTube is asking this question. How do you know you're ready to start a growth strategy? So a lot of people that are part of the Inside community, they are startup founders, and maybe they're pretty early on. And I know a lot of people wonder, like, all right, I maybe am still under 10 employees. How do I know what's the right move in like hiring or deploying or spending money on growth strategies?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about when you shouldn't. It's like if you really don't feel confident that you have traction, product market fit where it aligns with your goals and your business model, meaning the business model could be this needs to be profitable. We need to have positive unit economics, or we don't necessarily need to be profitable, but we need to have our cost per acquisition at a spend level that makes sense. If you don't have those things in a place that you think is good, don't overspend on growth. With that
Mhm.
being said, we call it a validation budget where you're going to have to spend stuff here, whether it's ad budgets, money on people, or your own time. But the way we think about it is with your validation budget, spend the least amount as possible and try to be as efficient as possible. But to give more like tangible things on what traction could mean, like with an e-commerce company, if you have a product over like $100, I want to see a conversion rate over 1.5 to 2%, and I want to see you at least breaking even on paid ads, ideally like with a ROAS over 1.5 or 2. 3 would be more ideal. And then on the B2B or SaaS side, I'm really caring about, can you get people into the product and minimize churn? Because if churn's an issue, which it always kind of will be, but if it's really out of hand, I don't want you sending people to a leaky bucket. And a lot of people with SaaS are still trying to land the plane on free trial versus freemium versus just getting to paid. And that's okay. But I really want to see some traction with the product and some revenue expansion opportunities that are signals of that before you overspend on paid. Because here's where it goes wrong is when people have come to me and they're like, oh, we've already spent all this money, but we don't think we have stuff yet. And they've really used their resources on growth when they should have been using it on finding traction.
Mm. That's really great. Super like tactical advice with those numbers. Would you mind going to the slide that's titled "What are your options for growth?" Because while we're on this topic of like, don't pour a ton of money into your growth strategy while you're still getting product market fit and traction, I'm curious what you would suggest as like the really cost efficient options.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm a direct to consumer brand, if I'm doing paid, I'm 100% focusing on Facebook, Meta, Instagram. Yes, that could potentially change. And then I'm doing Google after that, but probably not time spending over 20,000 per month. There's certain instances where Google would overtake social, but usually it's social, and that's on the paid side. But to be honest, where I really want to start is what can you do where you're engineering word of mouth? How do you turn your customers into marketers? If you can unlock this, this is huge. And that could be whether it's, yes, we talk about referral programs, but whether it's working with thought leaders, micro influencers to partner with them in whatever capacity, rev share or anything to get them to amplify it can be huge. Because I've seen that work and be such a non-linear growth leap that could be huge. But here's where it can go wrong. Don't do it if it comes at the expense of time. If it's going to come at the expense of time, then I want you to lean into really having a truly unique opinion on what you're doing and putting out there, and speak to that persona where you're pouring salt on the wound and talking about your unique offer, and doing that really through content marketing, which would be a lot of different forms. It could be meme type of fun stuff on Twitter and social channels. It could be thought leadership pieces. It could be you speaking and then turning that content into like marketing pieces you put out there. But those are ones that I'm kind of thinking through in the early days. But also a lot of times I see startups have momentum with something, but they're not doubling down on it. Like, oh, it's actually kind of working when we like do this community-based marketing, get into communities and help, but I got to figure out Google Ads. I got to figure out this. And it's like, no, it's like, let's build a machine around what's working until you squeeze the most out of it. Because a lot of times people are leaving money on the table.
That is such good advice. I feel like this world of like the viral word of mouth feels a little bit hard to pin down and no one knows like for sure what's true. But I know with all of your experience and the companies that you've helped grow, you know that these things are true. That like once you find a strategy, even if it's just some sort of virality thing, let the winner ride, right?
Absolutely. Because like, and you as a CEO, you need to be the person that's always trying to find the next thing where it's like, okay, you figured out content marketing. The next thing you want to do is, can you make it repeatable and build a machine around it where you pull
Right.
yourself out of the day-to-day,
Mhm.
maybe you're still in the strategy, and get that running, and then you can move on to the next thing. That's where it gets really exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. So, because you're a marketing agency, you probably see a lot of companies that are coming in wanting marketing help. Outside of agencies, where are the places that like these founders and CEOs watching right now can find hires, whether it be freelance or like even a full-time hire for a marketer?
Yeah, I love getting kind of war tested former founders that have a little bit of PTSD of being a founder, but actually were like sneaky good marketers to come in at an
Yeah.
early stage just because like the perspective they have is just like so amazing. That's one. I do like finding the up and comer from other places that maybe have a chip on their shoulder and like did a lot of work but didn't get promoted. Because if you can catch that person that's at the inflection point of a player coach, that can be huge. I'll be honest, I'm still very bullish on overseas work, whether it's remotely talent or even Upwork, to find people that are 40 to 80% less than US employees can be really helpful in the early days. And then eventually you can level up and get someone that's maybe a little bit more senior. That's what I like doing. And also, I think a lot of times the founders are like, I want to get full time and build culture. The good thing about freelancers and contractors or even agencies is it's a little bit more transactional, and you can hold their feet to the fire a little bit more aggressively, which is what you need in those early days.
Hmm.
But some agencies do come at a premium, so I might back off that until you have the money to support it.
Mhm. And for those bigger companies that are hiring agencies, I mean, you have an agency. What are the industries that you're typically seeing look for agency help in marketing?
Yeah, it's definitely like e-commerce and direct to consumer where you can really come in and help make some tweaks at those leverage points of conversion rate or traffic, is a big one. Same kind of goes for software as a service, SaaS, especially if it's a little bit more wide ranging appeal of a product where you can do some really good marketing. And then definitely anything around lead generation that could kind of flex B2B or B2C, but where you can have high volume. And then there are some agencies that specialize in like account based marketing. So if anybody has like an enterprise based software where you're kind of this merging of marketing and sales, ABM, account
Mhm.
based marketing specialties can be really good, but that's not something we necessarily do.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of ABM and lead gen just around lately. And would these technically be SaaS companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Usually because they're offering software products. And the main distinction between being able to do ABM versus not is you have such a high ticket item. You're like Varonis software where they close somebody and they're getting seven figures. But the close time is like 15 months. So you have to have
Mm,
marketing and sales work together where instead of like if you're doing a SaaS like an email pop-up for $80, you're almost doing this
different.
top-down approach where it's like, hey, you have an e-commerce
Interesting.
site, get our pop-up. Whether it's Varonis, they're like, hey, Oracle, you need this for this reason. And it's they're kind of going more personalized with their approach.
Super interesting distinction in the SaaS world. Jim, I wish we could talk for like hours, but I'm gonna, ask you if you can tell everyone where they can follow along with you and your companies on social and keep their learning going through GrowthHit.
Yeah, I'm just on Twitter, Jim W. Huffman, and same with LinkedIn. GrowthHit's just growthhit.com with 2 H's. I wish I would have put 1 H, but that's okay. And one day design. But yeah, I'm just Jim at growthhit.com, always around. But yeah, thank you so much for letting me come on, and really appreciate the time. Love what you guys are doing at Inside.
Thank you. Yeah, this was really valuable to me. I know our audience feels the same. I was taking screenshots all over the place, really comprehensive stuff. So thank you again.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right, everyone, that is it for today. Thank you for being here. If you want to continue your learning about marketing, you can check out Inside's marketing community, inside.com/marketing, and find more events like this that are coming up at inside.com/events. We are here every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, to talk marketing, especially growth marketing. And please check out GrowthHit, amazingly valuable information that Jim shared with us. All right, we will see you next time. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.